Welcome to Mimesis. Welcome to Boulder. Thank you for sharing this really special work with us.
Thank you for being here tonight. Maybe I have to.
Microphone 3.
If not, I
Now
can
working.
speak.
Now it's
out.
working.
No?
No. Better for the
Okay.
recording.
Mhm. It's now? You hear me? Okay. No, just thank you for being here and staying to have a conversation. I hope my English is going to be good enough to express myself.
Carolina, it's the second time I have the pleasure to watch this film in a theater, in a movie theater. And like last time, I'm struck by your choice. The past is in color, but the present is always black and white. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about that choice and maybe at which point this became obvious to you, or how this sort of distillation happened.
Yes, it was not something that came at the beginning because, of course, it's really interesting. Also, if you can think about the contrast of the stone with the green of the forest, also, like I was afraid of losing information there, but in the process, there were, I think, like to be precise, like two moments that were important in that choice. One is like I made like this observational work in the part of the museum where archaeologists are working with all the pieces that you saw like in the beginning of the film. This like laboratory of time of with these fragments, and I didn't study archaeology, so I approached this world like with this other gaze, and there I was thinking like they are all time trying to understand the past, and like the time of archaeology is the past. So, and normally black and white makes us feel like that, and also in a way the past is more alive, or no. So I want to build this contrast in time. So I decide that, and the second choice for that is the also Costa Rica, of course, this image of tropical paradise, green, and I want also to deconstruct this idea of the myth of also Costa Rica being um, other things that are not easy for us also not to speak about our identity and our decolonization and all the other things that come across. So the there was like this idea, and then I started working also with this photographer that works a lot with black and white, and like he's an eye of photography, still photography. He comes from still photography world, and also he connected with this language for him, and it's really important also, no, like to be in the team in the same also way of looking things. So that's
This is maybe a good transition to one of the other things that I think would be really interesting to talk about. You seem to you create a sort of constellation of co-conspirators, or maybe fellows on this journey of the film. You sort of take us by the hand when the film starts, but then we encounter other people along the way. First of all, of course, your father, of course, Ifigenia, the people who work in the museum, the teacher, the and then other people from the past who you recall, from Samuel Lothrop, from Copernicus, for better or for worse. So how did this idea of contact or touch, did it play a role for you in sort of structuring or defining this film?
Yeah, you have a really nice point. I think it was with Ifigenia when I start entering in the world of the spheres and the way she related to archaeology and to objects. And normally people, like now there is like a park where the spheres are, and you cannot touch like the spheres. They put like something like to protect them. And Ifigenia was like all the contrary. She was like, no, you have to touch these objects, to also understand how you feel them, the texture, and I start thinking like, wow, she's more like into this sensitive way of feeling things, and archaeology, and of course history, and then you can think about a metaphor of how we are so distant to our story, indigenous story. So it's a way of, can we have to get closer, but really like in action, no, to feel like, try to be more yeah, sensitive to this, and of course this idea of living objects and the surface, no, is like important. Yes.
I'm curious at which point, maybe in the making of this film, or in the making of the process or the personal research that you undertook, it became obvious that this would become so important. This specific type of layering between touch, contact, distance, relations, leading up to that broken pot at the end. How did this emerge for you? Did you have all this footage ready before, and then you defined it, or how did this film take this form specifically?
It was like a long process, like 5 years or 6 years. So the beginning was more like following this person, like more chaotic way, no, of knowing the different places where the spheres were, and like more like a research by my own, and getting with this world to know like this archaeological research of Ifigenia. But then in the path, like it was important to understand why I was going around these archaeologists all the time. No, it's like what I'm looking for, also, no, myself. And so that's where other questions came by, and I think it's important also, like I worked the film in with my producer also, Alexandra, and other creative team, and with different labs of development. So also like writing begin to be also important, to know okay, who is going to be the narrator of the film, no, the question like you start to ask. But then I think it's more also life, no, that came across, I think. And with my father, and questions that begin to be also more important in my way of relate to objects, to memory, no. And I think then I start to understand why I was maybe looking and being running behind these archaeologists, and to understand maybe also our relationship to memory. And yeah, I think when you come across this kind of also loss, um, there are other questions that come, no, to your mind, and I think then that came together in the development of the different things that were with my father, with me, and yeah. And I think archaeology was this world to put together these little pieces that maybe seem to be of different stories, but then the cinema has also this magic, no, that you can put together things that maybe in another way you cannot put it together, no, an image and then another image of, and to build like this universe. Yeah.
I have some more things noted down here, but I think this is a good time to ask if there are questions from the room. We're happy to take them. There's a microphone over there, so if you just raise your hand, Kurt can get it over to you. Yeah, there's a question there. Can sound? Yeah. Now.
Hello, hello.
Mhm.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for your wonderful film.
Mhm.
I'm very happy to be at Mimesis for the first time. And I noticed that in the film, the question of from where these spheres are is pretty well explored, and there are hints at kind of the question of who these spheres are, or who we project onto them, who the creators of them were. So I was wondering if you could maybe close the loop there a little bit. Who are these spheres for you, or otherwise?
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, for me now it has something to be with my father, no, of course, and but also is this magic of something so perfect like a circle, but being also cracked by time, no? So I people also know spheres because they are perfect, but I wanted also to approach these spheres with their cracks also. And yeah, I don't know if I answered the question with that, but I think also, of course, is symbolic to our identity in, like, when this story of colonization also is like yeah, like a symbol. I think the stone also is important, the material, no? It has a lot of stone normally like keep a lot of information, no? Rocks are like, so for me it's also like this spaceship of time. Okay. Yeah, also.
There's another question there. Mic is
Hi, thank you very much for the film. I wonder, my very favorite moment is the description of the dead body as the terrifying object, and I was interested in, as someone who grew up with open casket funerals, which I agree, those are terrifying objects. But could you talk a little bit about that notion of not having the reality of being through that moment, and just kind of that notion of the mysterious object in terms of the body, because I like that moment a lot.
Mhm. Yes, that's in. I like a lot also that part with also these stones like are buried, no, in the film. Yeah, that I think that was a moment in my life that struck me when I saw the dead body of my father, you know, and I was filming this film, no. As I was looking at spheres all the time this year, and so I think the mind does that, these connections, no, and it was also a traumatizing image, I think. And I think cinema has this magic to also transform these maybe things that make you no, sad or something difficult into something beautiful also, no. Because objects, we need objects, we are is part of, no, of our existence. And but the body, of course, normally is no in not objectified. Well, it depends, no, of course, but yeah. So yes, I think yeah. Well, for me, it was more like an experience I had watching this with my father, and then yes, putting together with the other images I had of the process of working with these tones. Yeah.
We have two questions there in the back. Maybe Anne and then Bentley. Anne first here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very wonderful and so emotional, but also incredible distance. And I'm curious about the script and how you worked and were you including the images with the script? Were you including things like going into the mango swamp, which is quite amazing, and it relates to the father, the death, and the connective tissue in a way. So just curious, where you must have had notebooks and scraps of things. There's so much from this archaeological world, just how you put it all together. And I found it started at one point. I could feel the way it was building.
Yes, I like to write a lot when I work. I think I enter also by the words, like, to the cinema. My mother also like studied literature, and when I was a kid, like, I don't know, like, books and words were really important. And I think when I start like to understand that the film has to like, in the beginning, the archaeological world was the most in the script, like the most described parts, to say, like, I knew I wanted like to have archaeological sites and then related to something conceptual or emotional. So I work also like with like columns, no, of sites or forms of the sphere. So broken spheres mean what, like, in emotion. And then was the idea that we have to have something that put together all these layers. And then was when I decided, okay, I'm going to be a character, like, in the film, because that was also a process. It wasn't something I knew from the beginning, or I was afraid, of course, like, to put my voice on top of this also subject that is also collective. No, it has to do with the indigenous story of my country, of a lot of things. No, and to do like a subjective point of view wasn't done until yet. But now I'm going to another subject, the script. Then I start like building this character of the narration, and yes, a little bit like as you said, also we were like at the end putting together with the editor was really important. Also, it was built in the editing room. Other things, like, sometimes we're like, okay, here we need to develop some more things, and then sometimes I was like writing and putting, like, with my cell phone the voice, and then the editor, like, at the end was a little bit like a puzzle also, to know where we have to work more the narratives, or the subject. No, okay, there is the context. I know there is no so much information about the spheres, like I know there are people that want also to have this information. I know, I'm sorry. It was
No,
not
I think that's great.
Yeah.
It's a mystery still,
yes,
yeah.
but we have to make decision. No, sometimes it's hard, but yes, we try to be like that.
No, thank you so much. It was so
Mhm.
intricate.
Thank you so much for this beautiful film tonight. The black and white already has me excited to see Faya Dai in black and white on the big screen on Friday as well. And another, speaking of tie-ins, tonight's pairing with the short, I don't speak Portuguese, but Visão de Paraíso or something like this by Leonardo Pirondi.
Yes.
I found myself comparing things between the two films constantly. And this specifically, we have the reference of the quantum objects, the observer effect, changing the behavior of quantum objects. And then I think in your film, there's this idea of, if we stop viewing something, if we cease to observe something, does it cease to exist? This question. I'm curious for you, what are your reflections on your own film after having seen Visão de Paraíso?
I like a lot, and I think it's really interesting how I was speaking with my friend about that. No, how cinema makes you have to observe something. No, you are here in this black. No, you have no choice that to see these images, and so cinema has also this power, no, that to put again something in front of your eyes. So I think that is very important, and also, maybe it's weird, but like spheres also are this idea of perfection. No, it has to be with utopia also, and paradise, that are like ideas that we don't know if like is possible, or and so maybe it's something that I linked. And of course this idea of maps, also of navigation, it's but more with this idea of like more abstract that. But I don't know for the programmer. No, you didn't program, but we can make a question to yeah.
I can interject here because I would really, I'm really curious to see how basically throughout the film we encounter different types of looks and gazes at the place, at the landscape, but also at the history of Costa Rica. So we have the archaeological, the colonial, the ethnographic gaze. All of these modes of looking are somehow embodying or trying to put the observer into someone else's perspective, and to sort of naturalize or internalize, ground that perspective within the observer. And yet toward the end of the film, you show us the pictures, the photographs that your father took, and you have a specific sequence about them. And you talk about this act of seeing the world or seeing events through someone else's eyes as a kind of redemptive quality or a redemptive phenomenon. What is that potential? What is that redemptive perspective for this act of looking through someone else's eyes? Because in documentary and also in anthropology, right, we talk a lot about that. So what is how can we emerge on the other side in a way that doesn't necessarily conquer or seek to master, but does something else?
Well, I think the look and the is very powerful. And now we have this society. Now we are all the time looking. Sometimes I'm like, I want to switch off my eyes, like it's something I think is a tool, very powerful, like image. And I want to link maybe something I have already said, but I think cinema has this power we can look the world through other person's eyes. And yes, when I found these pictures that my father took, it was a way of understanding and knowing him better, of how he looked the world, no, also through his eyes. And yes, so I think for me it has to be with also the act of doing cinema, no, that the chance that we have to immerse like in the eyes of the other filmmaker, or the people that the filmmaker is approaching, or the place, it has this power.
I have a question from the audience here.
I'm curious about that, how that gaze has incorporated itself into your life in terms of the archaeology of objects and the archaeology of imagery. Do you find yourself outside of the making of this film seeing certain objects either of your life or of your environment differently, and how?
Yes, now I'm doing a lot of archival research, but I think in a moment I have to stop, like, because also I think I want to do, a friend like was like, yeah, you have to do observational cinema, the next film, like in the present, like but yes, no, I think it has like of course teach me something. But I think since I'm a little girl, also I like to think that things have like some power or some soul, or the things you put into special powers, if you want. So I don't know if that has to be with of course also our indigenous and culture, of animism, or I don't know. So it's something that I have from childhood, I think. And then yes, now yeah, I'm doing a lot of archival research. If it has something to do with archaeology, I think. So yeah, it teach me how to do archaeology with images. Yeah.
Question here.
I was just wondering if there was anything you experimented with that was like radically different in terms of aesthetic. I mean, you talked a little bit about the color and stuff, or even like, I don't know, if you considered showing your dad's body, if it like even during deterioration, or if you kind of found this aesthetic and sort of kept following that and then whittled that down into the ultimate product.
No, yeah, I think it was. I knew that I had to do with the stones. It was a big like challenge, no, to see like how people are going to look an hour of stones. And you know, my producer was like, "Okay, if they cry seeing at the stones, I think we made it." It's like- I was like, "Okay, that's the challenge," but no, I'm joking. But no, I wasn't like filming the, yeah, I knew it was with the stones, and I didn't film my father or these scenes or in the hospital and everything that I was also all the time. No, yeah, like that was really clear from the beginning. Yeah, that is.
Maybe to complement that, can I ask you a little bit about how the sound concept for this film emerged? Because you talked about the lush landscapes of Costa Rica and trying to denaturalize or to maybe subvert our expectations. But on the other hand, the soundscapes that you offer from those places are very rich and are very telling. Your sound is sometimes diegetic, but other times you also enter this area of maybe more or harder to pin down, or sounds that are not easy to identify in our immediate realm. What was that process like? How did you find that balance between, first of all, diegetic and non-diegetic, and then second, between soundscapes of places and then these sound effects that sort of feel like portals into another world?
We work with a team, of course. We were with a musician from Ecuador that she worked with the cello. I don't know in English, yeah. And another sound like design guy from Colombia that we had like this co-production. And I start with the cello, and my friend that also she wanted to experiment like how these stones could sound if they have a sound. The stones, how can we imagine they will sound? So we had something in a moment really crazy, like alien, like really no. We were like, no, it's not from no. We start to experiment. So she started like experimenting, like with sound of the cello in that is the sounds like with the same instrument, but doing weird stuff. So we was like experimental a lot in that sense. Yeah, we work with her, and then the sound at the end, we were really also wanted to record the places where the stones are with these landscapes of sound of the forest. That was important. Like maybe if the information is not in the color of the image, it was like, okay, we have to put it there with the stones, no, and to feel this natural sound. Yes, so that was both work.
I have a question, immediate question. I could ask you a little bit about this idea of rebellion. So your title contains, and obviously the notion is so vital, objects, right? It's the root for, we're so used to thinking of them as static and dead, to objectify objectivity, this kind of disembodied presence, but then toward the end you articulate with Ifigenia, of course, you come up, the title comes from her, and then toward the end we also hear it articulated that objects are actually the ones we might think of them as flowing through time on a much longer duration, and then maybe from their perspective we are the ones who are pretty much insignificant or immovable within on that scale. So did this role does this role of rebelling against ways to look or rebelling against ways to do research, is this a conscious approach for you, or is this something that emerged maybe out of a certain lack or need to challenge something that would have been more prescriptive or more conventional?
I think maybe both. I studied anthropology, and it was weird to me when like this construction of objectivity when you do like field work and everything. So from my beginning, like in the university, thinking about that, I was already like, no, I want like to write in my first person the thesis, no, and start to saying like, well, we have a place, we look the reality from a point of view, and of course it's very logical, but it was also, yeah, I think it was from there. And when I started in the filmmaking, it was more easy to maybe assume that point of view because it was more permitted, like but also, yes, I think this rebellion of, I don't know, rebellion, so it's a big word also, but more this idea of existentialism of also of objects was like the first thing that was important for me for the film. Yes, like more in this sense.
Do we have a question? Yeah, Said here.
Thanks. There's the kind of material mystery at the center, which is where these spheres came from and why they were made. But I was also, in a way, more intrigued by the mystery of your father and why he was the way he was. And I wonder if you found in making the film and research and finding archives, and maybe there was a lot of material that's not in the film, but did you understand him in a different way? Did the film help you maybe understand why your relationship with him was so alienated?
Well, I think it was like with the spheres, I think also to accept there are things that you will never understand also. Because there are things with his way that really I never understand still today. And to accept that, no, that maybe we are not going to understand everything. But of course it helped me like in the process to reflect upon. But at the same time, yes, there's still a lot of questions. Yeah.
Do we have another question from the room? Yeah, we have a question there.
Hi, yeah, I have 3 maybe fun or kind of silly questions. What was the biggest sphere you found and documented? What was the smallest? And then if you had a favorite or one that you felt the most connected to.
The largest is like, the name is the silent sphere. Did you see the one of the archaeologists come behind the stone? So it's like a 3 meters diameter, I think. That is the biggest. The smallest, I don't know if it's true, but I have a friend that is like graphic designer that he made like also a poster of the film, that he had a small one in his house, a little one like this. Yeah. I think at the museum also they're a little like this. They found almost 300 until now. Like 2 years or 1 year ago, they found another one. Like they were like, now there is oil plantation. There's no more banana, but we have oil and like big oil palms now. So and my favorite, I think this one of the silence, but we went to places really far away also, that were like really special. The ones maybe, or when we have like this image really close to one of them, they had a lot of like little life, like plants in the. That was really nice, like to see. Yeah, in the middle of the jungle, really like more Indiana Jones still. I'm joking.
Can I ask you about this act of knowledge making through erasure, colonization, remaking, or making up the history? We're getting a sense of this, right? We see some of the acts of the European empires. We see also many of, or we get hints of some of these institutions that lead the bigger archaeology and earlier anthropology expeditions. But we never, so, but in but the names that we hear are always individual ones, right? We hear Lothrop, we don't hear Harvard and Peabody. We hear about making Costa Rica this white paradise, but we don't hear the Spanish Empire, or we hear Copernicus, but we also don't hear the sort of forces that are funding him. So it feels like a lot of the things you are sort of getting at or trying to contradict or to highlight are systemic, and yet the responsibilities are individual. Is that a choice that you made early on? Were there drafts where you were maybe calling more names of institutions than of people? And how did this end up being so personal, actually? Just saying this, it's this person and this person and this person that is enacting this systemic erasure, oppression, rewriting of history.
Yes, I think when I start like looking at the spheres, there were a lot of different characters, of course, and a lot of different films that could be done. No, Lothrop, apparently he was like doing espionage, like you open like a box of Pandora of political crazy stuff, and I was like, okay, no, wait. So yes, I think then I wanted like to work with objects. That was the thing that put together all the things. And Lothrop has these books of writings, no? So I start to think, no, I have to enter through these characters, through the objects that I found about them, and that also makes like this relationship more direct with the person. And yes, but no, with the big like, yeah, collective part of the story. It was always difficult to say, okay, how much information also do you give? No, for example, the United Fruit Company is really important and really has political influence in Latin America and Central America. But then we said like, okay, we have to give enough information that people can understand the big picture, and if you want more details, Wikipedia. No. But to enter through these objects of these characters, and then through their story.
Do we have any other last questions? How are we doing on our audience award? Yeah. So please vote after every screening, after every event that you attend. There are iPads in the room, and tonight, of course, is the first time you can exercise your right to vote for the audience award. And I would also like to invite you tomorrow at 10 a.m. We have an exciting first conversation of the festival. Please check out the program and try to see which are the things that you might not want to miss, because the days pass quickly and we're only together in the same space for these few days. Carolina, I would like to thank you very, very much for being in Boulder, for sharing this film with us, and also for responding to everything with such generosity.
I hope, yeah. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Have a good night.
Also, they're not iPads right now, they're laptops. So they're outside.
Beautiful cinema. Yeah.